Welcome. We're looking today at some material that's just incredibly clear, very authoritative, and really practical. It feels like a handbook for living in a chaotic world, especially within a community.
Definitely.
We're focusing on the instructions left by James, and he's a huge figure in the early community, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And when we talk about James, you have to remember his unique position. This is Jesus's actual brother.
Right.
What's really compelling is that he wasn't always a believer. He started out quite skeptical, apparently.
Hmm.
It was only after encountering the risen Jesus that, everything changed for him. He became this absolute pillar, the bedrock of the church in Jerusalem.
That journey from skeptic to leader, it gives his words so much weight, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
And his leadership was vital, especially early on when there were debates about whether non-Jewish believers needed to follow all the existing religious laws. James was firm. He argued that the Messiah's teachings fulfilled the Hebrew scriptures. They weren't about adding new burdens. His whole thing was unity, practical action, and, real righteousness in daily life.
And that's exactly what we want to zero in on today. Those core, actionable instructions he gave for facing life's big challenges. Things like wealth, how to stay patient when things get tough, and the spiritual tools the community needs. We're after the definitive instructions for living well under pressure. Okay, let's get into it. James kicks things off with, it's one of the most intense condemnations you'll find, aimed squarely at the rich, the elite. He tells them, essentially, weep and howl, misery is coming your way. What's the actual consequence here? It feels like more than just a simple warning.
Oh, it's far more. It's a detailed prophecy of ruin, and it directly links their moral choices to, physical and spiritual destruction. He says they'll watch their riches literally rot.
Rot, like physically decay.
Yes, and moths will devour their expensive clothing.
Mm.
But maybe the most striking part is about their gold and silver.
Which you'd normally think of as the most stable form of wealth, right? The enduring asset.
Exactly. But James says their stockpiled gold and silver are already corroded, tarnished. And this rust, it isn't just sitting there, it's described as an active witness.
The witness. How so?
This corrosion will stand up at the final judgment and testify against them. He even says it will consume their flesh like fire.
Wow.
So the idea is that wealth you just hoard, that you don't use justly, it turns toxic. It becomes this spiritual weapon aimed right back at the owner.
That really shifts it beyond just being rich is bad. It's about spiritual corrosion. So what was the core sin then? If hoarding leads to this kind of destruction, was it just having money?
No, not just having it. The fundamental problem was active injustice. Yes, they hoarded wealth. But specifically, James calls out that they withheld fair wages from the workers.
Ah,
The people who harvested their fields, who did the actual labor. He says that withheld money is literally crying out to God for justice. And those cries have reached the highest authority, the Lord of Heaven's armies.
and there's that connection he makes between their lifestyle and their fate. He says their life was all luxury, pleasure, constant consumption, feasting.
Right, feasting on slaughtered animals, living it up without a thought for the injustice enabling it.
But then the warning comes. The day of slaughter comes for them.
It's a chilling parallel, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Their self-indulgent feasting becomes the image of their own judgment. And it gets worse. He adds that they condemned and murdered the righteous person, someone who didn't even resist them.
So they acted like judges themselves.
Precisely. They took judgment into their own hands, condemned the innocent, and lived for themselves. And now they face the true, ultimate judge.
Okay, so after this fiery judgment against those outside, James immediately pivots. He turns inward to the community itself. If the result of external greed and injustice is this kind of chaos and judgment, then the community's response has to be about internal order, right? And he tells them to react with patience. But what kind of patience is this? Is it just sitting back and taking it?
No, it's definitely not passive resignation. It has to be an active, disciplined waiting. He uses this great analogy of the farmer,
Right, the farmer.
which would have really resonated.
Yeah.
You have to be patient, he says, waiting for the Lord's return, just like a farmer waits patiently for the earth to yield its harvest. The farmer plants, works, but can't force the growth. They depend on something outside their control.
The timing isn't up to them.
Exactly. The farmer has to wait for the early and the late showers. This means they need the first rains to make the seeds sprout, but also the later, sustained rains to bring the crop to full maturity. It's about endurance.
So it involves both doing your part and then waiting faithfully.
Yes, you need to strengthen your resolve, keep your hearts firm, because the Lord's coming is near. That nearness demands readiness, not despair.
And alongside that personal endurance, James gives really practical advice for keeping the community healthy while they wait. He's very direct. Stop grumbling against each other, stop criticizing. Why is that so urgent right now?
Well, because the judge is standing at the door. That's the phrase he uses.
Right outside.
Yeah. So if you're busy finding fault and complaining about others in the community, you're basically inviting judgment on yourself. It's a call for immediate accountability, for kindness, for getting rid of that internal friction.
And to help cultivate this patience, he points to examples, doesn't he? Historical figures.
He does. He says, look at the prophets. They're your models for enduring suffering patiently. And then he brings up one specific crucial example. Job.
Ah, Job, the ultimate example of perseverance through suffering.
Exactly. And James uses him to reframe how we see hardship. He says, we admire and bless those who persevered. But the key insight is why Job's story ends the way it does.
What's the insight there?
James emphasizes that the Lord orchestrated Job's final outcome. His restoration wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate grand display of his mercy and compassion.
So the suffering wasn't the main point.
No. The perseverance through suffering leading to God's compassionate restoration, that's the point. It turns waiting from just a burden into a necessary stage for seeing God's ultimate kindness.
That's a powerful reframing. Now, before moving off this internal discipline piece, there's one really clear, non-negotiable command about basic integrity.
Yes, absolutely fundamental. It's about speech and honesty. He strictly commands, do not make oaths. Don't swear by heaven or by earth or by anything else.
Just simple honesty.
Utterly simple, yet profound. James demands complete, unwavering integrity. Your yes must always mean yes, and your no must always mean no. Keep it simple, keep it true.
And the reason?
To avoid judgment. If you start making elaborate oaths, you open the door to deception, to breaking your word. Simple, honest speech keeps you clear of that kind of duplicity. It's about radical transparency.
That sets a really high standard. Okay, let's shift to the practical spiritual tools he provides for the community. He gets very specific about what to do in different situations, suffering, celebration, sickness.
He does, and the instructions are incredibly direct, very actionable. If you're suffering, if you're going through affliction, pray.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. If things are good, if you're cheerful and celebrating, sing praises. Give voice to that joy.
Okay, and what about sickness? That's often where community support is most needed.
Right. If you are sick, the instruction is, call the elders of the church. Don't just suffer alone. Call the leadership. They're then to pray over the sick person and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord.
And what's the expected outcome of this combination of prayer, anointing, and community involvement?
There's a clear promise attached. The prayer offered in faith will restore the one who is sick. The Lord will raise them up. It's a promise of healing, of restoration.
That's significant.
It is. And there's another crucial layer. If the sickness is connected to sin, James says, those sins will be forgiven.
Ah, so it connects physical healing with spiritual restoration.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach achieved through the community acting together in faith.
This goes way beyond just personal prayer then. And James reinforces that, telling people to confess sins to one another and pray for one another. Why is that mutual confession so important for healing?
Well, it builds genuine community, doesn't it? We aren't meant to carry our struggles, our sins, our illnesses in isolation.
It requires vulnerability.
A lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Confessing to another person requires transparency. And that honesty is vital because James then says the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. When the community is bound together by this kind of honesty and mutual support, their collective prayer carries immense weight.
And to really hammer home that this isn't just for spiritual giants, that this power is accessible, he gives that example of Elijah.
Yes, and he specifically says Elijah was a human being, even as we are.
Just a regular person, essentially.
Right, not some untouchable figure. He was human, with human struggles. Yet when he prayed earnestly, intensely for it not to rain, God answered. And there was no rain for 3.5 years.
A dramatic demonstration of answered prayer.
Hugely dramatic. And the rain only returned when Elijah prayed again for the skies to open, which then led to a harvest.
So the lesson isn't just prayer works. It seems to be more about the power of earnest, focused prayer from an ordinary righteous person.
Absolutely. And maybe the benefit here is twofold. Prayer connects us deeply with God, yes, but it also works to align our own will, our desires, with His greater purpose. It's not just about getting what we ask for.
It's about transformation through connection.
Precisely. And doing this together, prayer, confession, it knits the community together in a really authentic way.
So let's bring this together for you, the listener, trying to put this into practice. We've really outlined a complete framework here, rejecting hoarded wealth in favor of justice, practicing that active, relentless patience like the farmer, and embracing the power of community through prayer, confession, and healing. It really is a guide for functioning when everything feels unstable.
It is. And James leaves us with one final, very challenging instruction. It kind of pulls all this communal wisdom together into a single action. He tells you, the listener, directly, if you know someone in your community, one of your brothers or sisters, who has wandered from the truth, who's lost their way, you have a responsibility.
Which is?
You must go after that person, pursue them in love, and bring them back. Turn them back to the truth.
So the focus shifts entirely from just managing my life to actively restoring others.
Exactly. It's outward-focused compassion in action. And the consequence, James says, is profound. When you turn a sinner back from their error, you rescue their soul from death.
Rescuing from death, that's huge.
It is. And furthermore, that act of restoration is said to cover over a multitude of sins. It covers the pain, the consequences, the damage of potentially untold failures.
So the ultimate expression of all this practical wisdom isn't just self-improvement, but actively seeking out and restoring those who've stumbled, bringing them back into that healthy community.
That seems to be the final crucial application.
That pursuit, that restoration of others, that's
Yeah.
a really compelling final thought for you to take away and consider.